And actually, just before we talk about your journey through the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, which obviously was one of the big events of your entrepreneurial life, someone here by the name of Tanaka Gomba saying, very polite to all the people asking questions, Mr. Dimairho, what do
Yes.
you find most challenging about being an entrepreneur in Zimbabwe?
Yeah, I mean, what's challenging is obviously, yeah, that's it. I could spend a whole day answering this question, but I think what's most challenging as an entrepreneur in Zimbabwe is we have an environment that's constantly changing from a regulatory perspective, from a fiscal perspective, from a currency perspective. So it's quite challenging finding, every 3 months you've got to be reviewing your policies and procedures and the way you operate to make sure that you remain relevant and survive. So you always have to be constantly reinventing, rediscovering yourself. But at the same time, as challenging as it is, I think it's also good in the sense that you are always ahead. And I think all the other markets that I've then gone to get involved in and expanded to beyond Zimbabwe has made it a lot easier because, it's taught us to survive and thrive in a difficult environment. We've learned how to survive and thrive in a difficult environment.
So do you think that Zimbabwean entrepreneurs, they're like the elite guard of entrepreneurs in sub-Saharan Africa right now?
I think so. I think a Zimbabwean entrepreneur, look, they've seen it all. They've seen hyperinflation. They've seen hyperinflation. They've seen regular changes in the operating environment, and they've constantly had to adapt and change their businesses to survive. So I think Zimbabweans are somewhere at the top there. I think even if you look regionally, Zimbabweans in sub-Saharan Africa, probably in South Africa, I know that about 20% of executives are Zimbabweans, right? So in executive management in a lot of these organizations. So it just shows you the kind of people that we've created. Those that have remained in Zimbabwe have benefited the economy. There's some that have gone out and dominated outside Zimbabwe as well.
We've got another question here from the online audience from Mr. or Mrs. Rashan Kutura. Asking, and I'm saying exact words here, what do you think it will take for Zimbabwe's economy to move from third world to first world?
Okay, so what it takes, it's a very simple answer. It's all about products and services. So the world is a global village now. And whatever you're doing, you have to be globally competitive. You have to create globally competitive products and services, one, that are consumed locally, and that can be sold into the region. So for Zimbabwe to get out of this, we need to create products and services of a global competence that are consumed locally and that we can export. That way, when we have products and services that we export, it increases our forex inflows, it creates employment, and invariably lifts the standard of living. If you look at China, China has been able to grow from a third world to a first world country, in a period of, I think, 20 to 30 years, because they simply focused on providing products and services that are consumed domestically, and they have increased their exports. And that way, they've gradually, they always say a rising tide lifts all the boats.
Okay, so we get now to the shall we say, the decisive phase of your career so far. Now, you were 17 years old, and a lot of people then, all they worry about is going out and dating and whatever. But you went and got a meeting with the CEO of the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. How daunting was that for you, and how was that meeting?
Yeah, so that meeting was, if I look back at it, I was very confident for a person of my age at that time. And, I just was fearless. I just walked in and, requested for a meeting very boldly. and I got it, and I was confident I was going to solve this problem, or if I didn't solve it, I was going to at least try, so that's how I looked at it.
And this problem was at the time, and I know I've been in the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange myself many, many years ago, is that it was still done by hand. It was still done on paper and on a board. There was no electronics whatsoever. That day, which sounds like a decisive meeting in your life, what did you sit down and say to this gentleman?
No, I sat down and said, you know what, this market is manual. I'd already done a bit of my homework on what needed to be done. And then I said, look, I have a solution for your manual market. I've been trading and I've been seeing the inefficiencies. I want to give it a try. So I will come and provide the systems and the support to implement it. If you will allow me and work with me to solve this problem and bring this market from, a manual environment to a fully automated environment.
So, and this time, I mean, this gentleman was probably twice or maybe even 3 times your age. What did he say back to you? I mean,
probably closer to 3 times my age. I think he didn't want to dismiss me, but he simply said, look, we have already made a decision on who's going to automate the market. The best thing is that maybe continue to talk to us. We may be able to provide you with an opportunity to do some maintenance and support and ancillary work around the main system. But as for the main project, we already know, we already have an idea of what needs to be done, and we've already identified who must do it.
Why do you think he didn't dismiss you at the time?
I think it was, if you're a CEO, you're a politician. So you have to deal with everybody in a political way. It's just like a banker. No banker will say no if you go and say you want to borrow money. They'll never outrightly tell you no. They'll just say, bring this requirement and that requirement, and you'll gradually, if you don't meet the criteria, you'll gradually fall away. And then they'll say, okay, when you have everything ready, you can always come back when you're ready. But they'll never tell you no. So there's a polite way of saying no, I think.
But you had to wait a bit of time. But in 2009, things changed. The control of the exchange moved from the exchange to the regulator. And the regulator decided at long last to put out a tender to make the exchange electronic. Now, I go back to one of the first questions we got here from Panache Ryan, who says, Mr. Dimairho, I want to know how you raised your startup capital on your first business and which businesses gave you a break into financing Chengetidzai, which was the name of the system you came up. But let's just start there. How did you start raising money? Because, I mean, everyone would like to make the stock exchange electronic, but it's not as easy as said than done.
Exactly. So one of so I always get this question, and I'm glad it's been asked. A lot of people say, I don't have the capital to start my business, so I'm not going to start it. But I would like to say that money is always attracted to good ideas. In fact, in this world, there's too much money and there are not enough good ideas. So sometimes when your idea doesn't attract money, maybe it's not yet good enough. It's not good enough to attract the money that is available. And my philosophy was always do what you can with what you have where you are. I was broke. I didn't come from a rich family or have a pool of capital from anywhere. I just bootstrapped the thing, I bootstrapped the thing because it was a service. It was more of human effort required more than physical outlay of money. So I figured I'm going to bootstrap this to the point, because I think initially we're supposed to supply software. So I said, I'll bootstrap this. We'll find the people that can build this, but they're not going to be on a salary. We'll partner together. And if this succeeds, we all make money. If it doesn't, there's no money and no one gets anything. So we were doing everything on a success basis. So we bootstrapped, we used the little resources that we had to work towards getting known and working towards building a system for the
Now, this word bootstrapping, I mean, entrepreneurs use it a heck of a lot. Everyone says it's easier, again, said than done. Just give me an example of where you actually took your revenue or whether your capital and put it straight into something else, and without borrowing.
Okay, so what I was doing, I was trading shares, right, on one side. On another side, my main focus was to automate the market. So whatever little money I was making would finance, my, the expenses I needed to, back then it was more of moving around, meetings, proposals, stationery, and a bit of, internet costs here and there, but nothing significant. So I was doing something else that was financing my main business, because I said, I'm not going to borrow money. Before there's any guarantee whatsoever that we've secured this business, the best form of capital is revenue. And unless you have guaranteed and secured revenue or a secured contract, borrowing money is extremely dangerous, because 90% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. And it's very risky to take money before you've guaranteed that you have a market that will pay you money.
And at that time, I mean, the interest rates must have been sky high, and also there was problems with the currency, all kinds of issues you had to deal with. How difficult was that?
And besides that, like most entrepreneurs, if you don't come from a rich family, you don't have collateral. And if you want to borrow money from the banks, they want collateral. And the banks are systematically designed to not support startups. So you have to, unless you're getting friendly money from anybody, but even friendly money, I would only recommend that it be gotten only when you have a guaranteed off-taker, customer, or contract. Then only then go and look for money from outside. Otherwise, try and figure this thing on your own and use whatever resources at your disposal. In some instances, enter strategic partners, create joint ventures so that you can limit your outlay of money, but have involved. I read somewhere where the guy that drew the initial graffiti at Facebook offices, they didn't pay the guy for the graffiti. But I mean, this guy ended up making 200 million from the shares that he got. And it was more money than the most expensive painting ever sold, right? So sometimes you may have to bring people into your businesses so that you can leverage their resources without expending any money or creating liabilities.
Now, you had to bring a team of developers in, clearly, to make the stock exchange electronic. How did you go about that? And how did you approach them, bearing in mind what you just said about the Facebook guy?
Okay, so my brother, is a software engineer. And I talked to my brother and said, can you recommend? But at that time, he had already moved to South Africa. And I said, please refer me to some people that I can partner with. I know you're in this community. He referred me to a couple of guys. And my job was to convince them, to show them the opportunity that was there, and to say, guys, come and join me on this mission. And let's work on this together. Let's all take a stake in this project together. If we succeed, we all make lots of money. If we don't, we've tried, but we have nothing to lose more than just the effort and time that we've put into this.
And then even more difficult at that time, because you said you were basically pretty much broke when you came up with the idea. You had to go knock on the door. I've looked at your board. You've got bankers, you've got lawyers, you've got some very influential people on the board of the company that eventually did do the job at the stock exchange. How difficult was that? Just knocking on the door saying, excuse me, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, so I think it's something that happened progressively over time. I probably got more no's than yeses. And it was just a matter of looking for like-minded people who bought into the vision and understood what we're trying to do, and decided that they were prepared to also risk their name and reputation. They were prepared to risk their capital in some ways. I think because they believed in us and they saw what we're trying to do. And more importantly, us also offering value to them. To say, look, this is the project at hand, this is the opportunity. If we succeed, it's our success jointly together.
We're in the